NSC Gameboy. Any words before we bring in the man himself?
Man, you know me. I'm a man of less words. I really don't say much. I just like to get things started. So, in other words, let's get things started.
Oh yes, got to bring on things. So with my knowing, we're gonna bring in right now the man himself. We're gonna bring in also former wrestler, WCW and ECW, the man himself, Scotty Riggs. Believe this is you. Welcome to Under the Mat Radio. This is you?
This is Toph, not Scotty.
Oh, crap, we got a different number. Toph, what's up, man? Oh, correspondent. I believe we got the number phone up here. Toph, what's going on, man? You
I'm
got
good.
Any random shout-outs real quick before we bring in Scotty Riggs?
Just shout-outs to the flock. Great faction. Should be talked about more.
Yeah.
Good words.
Well, you know what's funny? You're from Georgia, Toph 706. I believe we got another Georgia number, which is 912. Is this the man himself? Is this Scotty Riggs?
Scotty Riggs right here, Daddy-O.
We got him.
All right.
We got him. What's going on? Scotty Riggs, how you feeling, man?
With my hands, brother. With my hands. That's old humor. Old school humor, bro.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for coming on to the show. Just gave you your introduction. I did let the fans know that you definitely do not want to be called a superstar. I was told by a good friend of mine, Fred Riccini, who interviewed you not long ago, that you don't like that term. You just want to be called a wrestler and an athlete.
It's to me, I appreciate that, and I'll just give a quick explanation, man. Sports entertainment, wrestling's always been entertainment, but it's always been a sport. Sports entertainment is a Vince McMahon coined term. Superstar diva is a Vince coined term. He basically has a TV show that's about wrestling. What I grew up on was wrestling that was on TV. Two different scenarios. And I've always played sports. I've played baseball, basketball, football. Played football in college. So I've always considered myself a football player, an athlete, a person in sports. I never considered myself an entertainer like they do nowadays. Everyone's got to be a celebrity. Everyone's got to be a star or a superstar. That's what they're going to be known as. They got to be celebrities with check marks by their names or, podcasts and all this other stuff with all these followers and everything else. I never went into wrestling to be a celebrity. I went there because I grew up as a fan of it, and then pretty much just enjoyed the sport of it. Whether it was, a show of sport, but there's so much athleticism goes into it. That's the sport I loved it. So that's why I like the wrestler. I grew up to be an athlete, not an entertainer.
We definitely love that explanation. You know what? You are, I believe, the first wrestler, and some like to be called a superstar, that actually told us that I don't want to be called a superstar. I just want to be called an athlete or a wrestler. The first time in a long history that anyone's ever told us that. So we applaud you for that. We thank you.
Well, again, I never fell into the Vince McMahon, the WWE colloquialism of sports entertainment. To me, it's wrestling. It's just when he does is a TV show. He has a bunch of guys that are wrestlers. That's why their promos are horrible. They're scripted promos. Half their matches are done completely out of their hands. They have some input of what they're doing, but they got to know what camera angle to be at, where to be at this because it's all a TV show. Every ounce of it is a TV show. Everything is a production effort of it, and that's what wrestling has evolved into, which is great for them. That draws fans in a sense. It packs arenas, but the fans today are more critics than fans. They go to shows to be a part of the show. They go to shows to tweet out what sucked, what was great, everyone's a critic instead of a fan nowadays. I was in the era where it was more wrestling, where fans still believed in what was going on. They had doubts. They had, some misconceptions about what was happening or anything. But they had good guys. They had villains. They had bad guys. They had, the white hats that everyone fought for. They had the beautiful woman, the damsel in distress. They had the women wrestlers. Everyone looked like a wrestler, not like a GQ movie star. And so that's the thing. It's all cosmetic now. And again, I'm old school with it because I grew up in a different era. You know, I'll be 50 years old next March. So I kind of grew up in a different era where the 70s and 80s of wrestling to me was the golden era, was the dream era. 90s was a big TV push of it, and the national viewing of it, the international viewing of it, and then Vince taking it over, and now ratings are not as good as they used to be, not drawing ratings. And yeah, they can say they're drawing great houses, and their Raws are doing great, and they got a building that sits maybe 10,000 people, but they used to do 40,000 in. They're doing buildings for 10 to 15,000, and they make it look like it's a huge building with camera angles and stuff. I learned that in WCW when I was there. So, you know, to me, it's a whole different genre of wrestling. I'm definitely glad it's grown in a sense for the athletes today because they make great money. They have more benefits. They're a lot more professional what they're doing. They have families and stuff like that. You know, the Roman Reigns interview last night, or promo last night, where we talked about this 7-year-old kid. Then I'm bringing the belt home for you, honey, and all this stuff. When Brian Pillman and Z-Man were together, Pillman was married with, I think, 2 or 3 kids at the time. But the fans didn't know that because they pushed him as a young baby face that they wanted the chicks to swoon over, the guys to kind of want to emulate or hate. You know, they want to drive some passion out of you for that person. But nobody knew Brian Pillman was married with kids, and they pushed him for the young T-Bopper girls to dig. And that was the selling point of him. Roman Reigns is a young, good-looking kid, got great athletic ability, but the girls at church are going to go, I got no chance. Look, he's married with kids. He's talking about his family. So that's a little bit more the realism of it today. But are these girls going to buy his T-shirts now and fawn over him because they know he's married with a kid now? Kind of doubt it, you know. Maybe the kids will buy his shirts because he's a big, tough guy. But the teenagers and stuff, the girls that could really dig him, just aren't going to do it anymore. So that's, you know, the nature of their scripted, you know, and it doesn't sound genuine. Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Roddy Piper, the greatest interviewers in the world, promo guys in the world. Nikita Koloff was one of the best.
Oh, yeah, shout out to him.
Everything he did was so straight to the point, boom. He didn't have this flowery speech. But the greatest promos in the world are off the cuff that you get a feeling and a vibe for what to say. These kids nowadays, they don't have that feel for it anymore because it's all TV. It's scripted. It's given them, this is what you're going to do, this is when you're going to do it. It's a different animal today. But, again, it's great TV. Well, it used to be great TV, but it's still TV.
Yeah. We want to ask you, thank you for that, too, Scotty. We always ask our guests, what do you want us to call you? Scotty, Scott, Mr. Riggs, you know, what do you want us to refer you as?
Most everyone calls me Riggs. I mean, the strange thing about it, when I was in WCW, there's probably about 20 Scotties. There's Scott Norton, Scott Hall, Scott Steiner, Scott Vick, you know, Scott Levy. So everyone called us either by Norton, Hall, you know, Raven, Sick Boy, or Vic, or they called me Riggs, you know, because there were so many Scotts around, we just all got used to be called by last names.
Okay.
So, you know, that's kind of what we went by. And so nowadays when everybody calls me anything, or, you know, it's usually if they know me well enough, like Lodi and some of the guys from the flock, Raven gave me the nickname Riggsy. I don't know where it came from or how he thought of it away. He just came up with it one day and said, hey, Riggsy. And next thing you know, it stuck. And so there's a few guys who call me Riggsy. But most of the people I know that I talk to, I just say, call me Riggs. You know, it's simple, easy. You know, that way you're not, you know, if my name was Sean, you had Hernandez on here, you know, at the same time with me. We were going back and forth and Sean, you know, say you had Shawn Michaels and Sean Hernandez on there. You're going to call, you know, you're going to call one HBK and the other one probably Hernandez. Go by their gimmick names in a sense. That way keep it a little simple.
All right, no problem. For that, we're going to turn it over with my co-host, NSC Gameboy.
First of all, Riggs, let me say to you, boy, it's a pleasure having you on the show. Glad that you got a chance to, out of your busy schedule, to come holler at us. My first question to you is that with your explaining about entertainment and you being an athlete, the word performer is also a word that a lot of our guests in the past have also used. I want to hear your opinion about also being a performer do you think that that's suitable for you being an athlete, as another term as using the word performer, or do you think that's still associated with the entertainment
performer's
side?
not, I mean, really, performer's not as bad in my sense because, I mean, you go out and you perform matches, you know. Again, I'm so old school. I'm you know, you look at me, you can blow dust off of me in a sense, you know. I'm almost so old school. But, you know, to me, I just want to be, again, called wrestler. If somebody at Triton says he's a great performer, that's okay. Then to me, that's better than saying he's a great superstar, a great entertainer, great. Because again, that entertainment was a part of it, but that wasn't you didn't hype on that. You know, and what I grew up on and what I did in sports. I mean, when I went to college and played college football, we didn't have all the, you know, what you want to call all the graphics on the TV and stuff like they do nowadays. You don't have all the people, you know, doing all the things that make them celebrities. You know, we were the athletes, the guys who played football. We were football players, you know, and we didn't do all these, you know, end zone dances and stuff that they do nowadays. Didn't do the crazy things like that. Didn't have all the athletic shoe deals and all the commercials and stuff like that. If you got them, it was great, but only the few had it, and that made them stand out just a little bit more. But just made them a little more hunted in a sense when you played against them. But to me, again, you know, that's performance not as bad as being called an entertainer or celebrity. You know, the only time I ever pulled a celebrity card most of the time was when I was going into a strip club. And I didn't want to pay the $20 cover. I walk in, the guy would look at me, hey, Riggs, what's up, you know, and we walk in, I had a couple of boys with me or whatever, and we're like, hey, can we come on in, blah, blah, blah. And, yeah, no cover, don't worry about it. We just tip the girl at the door, and you know, we save $100 on that, but we tip the girl $50. That's the only time I ever pulled a celebrity card, trying to get into a club or something.
Okay, I appreciate that. My next question to you is about back in the WCW days, you know, the Raven flock. That fraction of wrestlers was very, very dynamic at the time. You really haven't seen anything quite like that. And to this day, you really haven't seen anything still like that. I want to ask you, if you had to pick a fraction out there, a group of guys out there to mimic, or maybe had the same type of flair that you guys had, which group would you probably associate with y'all? That you probably say, you know, those guys was up there with us, you know, or those guys, they definitely was close, you know, per se.
Do you mean in the past, or do you mean?
I mean
today?
Overall. I'm not just talking
overall,
about the past. I'm talking about overall.
I mean, the guys I dig right now are actually the Wyatt family.
Yeah,
because
sure.
the big thing about the flock, we were in an era where the NWO was supposed to be the bad guys. They were supposed to be the heels, the guys that came in and took everything over. But they wanted to be the cool bad guys to sell the merchandise. They had to be cool. They had to be too sweet. You know, the whole gimmick when the crowd reacted that way. They had to be, you know, that's what they wanted. They wanted to be the cool guys. You know, that they did not want to be really booed. They wanted to sell merch, and that's where they got their bonuses from and stuff like that. So, God bless them. I mean, they changed it a little bit where the number one heel faction got the bigger pops and WCW guys who were supposed to be fighting them off, you know, and everyone wanted to join them, you know, instead of being the baby faces that fight. Everybody wanted to go be the cool heels. And the thing about the flock was we were the outcasts. You know, we were the guys that nobody wanted to be with us. Nobody wanted to, you know, you didn't see a bunch of people wanting to join the flock. You just saw somebody show up every now and then. And I was the only one of us that really didn't show up. I kind of got beat into the flock or fought into a flock, I don't want to call it that way. And we really wanted to be heels. The only cool thing we did was to sit ringside. And we did that basically because we wanted to be outsiders. And it's not really outsiders, but the outcasts, circle outcasts. That we didn't hang out in the locker room. You know, that's not where we came from. We came from the streets, basically, in our grunge gear and in our hats and leather and cut-up shorts and stuff. And we came in and sat down and sat in the audience, jumped to the Carvel and fought the guys, and we jumped Benoit, we jumped DDP, we jumped, you know, whoever the people that we were having angles with at the time. he kept jumping those guys, and we get heat on them. We beat them up, and we line them all out, and we get booed. There's a couple times where, like after the Georgia Dome, where Goldberg and Hogan first wrestled, me and Saturn wrestled Stephen Michael, Mongo, and Benoit. And there were 40,000 people in the Georgia Dome that night. Huge crowd. They were on everything we were doing. And of course, we cheated to go over on Benoit and those guys. We were Raven D and DDT and Benoit. Perry getting the cover. And instead of sliding out and going the downstairs way into the dressing room, because, they're not gone up the aisle, but sliding up the bottom way, Van Hammer decides to lead us up to the crowd to the same way we came out. And so, we just finished the match. Me, Melody, and Saturn, and Raven was involved, and Kidman was involved. And so basically we hopped over the rail and followed him, and we actually got into a slugfest trying to get out of there. We didn't have security walking with us like they do nowadays with these guys. They got to have some of those guys there. We were trying to leave, and we were throwing punches, and people were throwing stuff at us and pushing us, shoving us, throwing punches at us too. And that's real heat, because we just beat up the two to four horsemen. And that's something we wanted that. We wanted to be hated. We wanted to be booed. We didn't want to be cheered. There's nothing like the feeling of sitting there ringside and having a little kid run up and shoot a bird in your face or cuss you and run away. You're going, wow, we got heat. When a little kid comes up and does that. Some people try to be cool with us. They like me, when they say hi to us, something, we just look at them, not put their stuff over, not say a word to them, just look at them. And then they kind of like, oh, sorry, man, don't want to piss you off, And that was the cool thing about it. We didn't try to sit there and sign autographs and have people like us to buy merchandise and stuff like that. If you didn't like us, a lot of times I'd actually sold more merch, and we all didn't have merch. But, we had like 2 shirts. Raven had one, and we had one group one that they kind of sold. And that was about it. But, our characters, our personas were not to be liked, and we didn't want to be liked. Because we made more of an impact when people really booed us. And that's one thing that wrestling lacks nowadays, or sports entertainment lacks, is, and even in a great movie, you have a true villain that stays the villain the whole time. And gotta have that good guy go against him. Now you just have a bunch of guys that are they flip-flop back and forth so much, they change every few months, depending on what they need somebody to be, and that's a great ability to do, but Ric Flair is one of the few guys I've ever seen. Pretty much, him and Roddy Piper pretty much stayed the same, whether they wrestled as a good guy or a bad guy. Even Paul Hogan did the same way. They really didn't cater to the fans. They just did their thing in the ring. If you cheered them, you cheered them. But they really didn't hype for the cheers, or hype for anything. They just worked the same style.
Right.
Like I see nowadays, they cater to the fans. They grab a hole, one of their high spot holes, and look to the fans, and look for that crowd reaction. And they beg for that reaction instead of letting the reaction come organically. So that's one thing the Flock had. We really wanted to be heels, and we got that heel reaction. That's why you don't see that anymore. If you guys really want to be hated, everyone likes to be, everyone wants to sign autographs and get pictures taken.
Yeah, well, thank you, Riggs. I appreciate that. Jack,
Riggs, moving on to other correspondent, fellow also from Georgia too, Toph. He always talked about his love for the Flock, so I'm going to let him go in and ask you a question. Toph?
Toph, you there?
I'm sorry, his call dropped. So just let me know. He'll call right back. But I'll
I guess he got nervous.
Yeah, I did.
He thought I got talking about being a villain. He got scared.
Well, Riggs, you talk about the Flock. I know me and NSC Gameboy, we been in the wrestling since the 80s and big fans. And I remember for us, we loved the Flock because it was different. And I remember, and I'm sure NSC Gameboy did, going to school with people like the Flock. This was before Twitter and Instagram and the internet, and so it was always the people that sat in the corner in school that wore all black, the kind of gothic types that was mad all the time, or that kind of smelled a little different, or just was mad at the world. And I remember had a good friend of mine from high school. Her name was Kelly, and she was an artist as well. And Just like how Kidman was scratching in the hair, that's exactly how she was. So that's what kind of drew me. I was like, yeah, I know people just like to fly.
Do you know the story behind Kidman scratching?
No.
Well, the funny part about Kidman, he was supposed to be a guy that came off the streets. You know, he was Billy in spandex when he came into WCW and stuff like that, and he disappeared for a little bit because they weren't using him, and Ray wanted to bring him into Fox. So basically, brought him in all grungy and everything, but he was scratching because basically a heroin addict. When he doesn't have the heroin, he gets scratching. Mm-hmm. And so that was the thing behind his scratching was it was supposed to be kind of not really a heroin addict per se, but that was something that people off the streets know that when a guy scratches, there's usually an addiction in there. So that was part of the persona that you were playing. You know, I came from the American males where I had the eye injury. And so I went from being a pretty boy to being, you know, an outcast because of an injury, because of disfigurement. You know, and Raven, his whole thing, he got a lot of his imaging stuff from South Street in Philly. When before he went to ECW and stuff, he moved to Philly and was getting to work there. That's where he got a lot of his images, his ideas, and stuff like that for his look and everything else. And so I mean, it's just like and Super Boy, you know, his whole thing was he was a guy that, and Lodi, both of those guys came out of the power plant, and they were basically given, you know, Sick Boy. It came from that I can't remember the name of the movie now, but Train Spotting is where Raven got the name Sick Boy. It was one of the characters in the movie, and that's just a great name, you know, Sick Boy. It's just a great persona for the guy. And Lodi was Idol because he looked like Billy Idol spelled backwards, and he became the sign guy of it. And you know, so everyone was kind of their own image. Van Hammer, you know, he was the heavy metal dude, and since beforehand, and he kind of kept the same look, but just went a little more goth with it. And Saturn kept his gimmick with the shaved head and everything that had in ECW because that was already his perceived image. You know, he just stopped wearing the tights and started wearing the jeans and stuff. So we all had a specific kind of like something that went with our past that people kind of, you know, if the people on TV saw it that were like catching it, would go, yeah, these guys are legit what they're doing. They're not just playing a role because, in a sense, we're playing a role, but then people on TV go, yeah, I know what that is. I know what that is. I know why he's that way. I know why he's that way. And it makes sense. Mm-hmm. So Kidman doing the scratching was basically a sign of a drug addiction in a sense. People on the streets, they didn't bathe enough. If they didn't have their drugs or they'd sit there and they'd scratch.
Right. Well, how did y'all deal with sitting with the crowd? Did y'all ever deal with any fans trying to heckle you guys or mess with you guys?
Oh, all the time.
Where you had to stay in character? Was any times off camera doing Nitro or Thunder where y'all had to kind of like tell the fans to shut up or kind of, you know, keep it?
No, but the only thing we would do is if we didn't have to wrestle, we'd sit there and, you know, just say one of us had to wrestle and that would be it. We'd do our match and then we'd be out there, but we'd be there maybe, you know, maybe 15 minutes in the show and we didn't wrestle a match until the 9 o'clock hour. So we'd be sitting there for like 45 minutes or so before the show, or before the match, just so we'd be in the crowd. But the only thing we do in between, Jackie Crockett, who's one of the camera guys, would always come over and go, hey guys, we're ready to break. You know, I'll let you know when we're out of break. He goes, cool, Jackie, you know, blah, blah, blah. And we talk to him for a minute. And every now and then we'd be sitting by a celebrity, like in Memphis. We sat by Jerry Lee Lewis. He was right behind us. And Jackie Crockett came over and said, hey, I'm getting a shot of Jerry Lee Lewis behind me, the rock and roll guy from the Memphis area. We said, really? So, you know, we kind of popped in the character a little bit. We sat there, a little deadpan, dead face, and we got the shot of Jerry, and everything. Jackie gave us the cut where he was off camera and then we were off. He pulled away. Me and Raven both turned around. Hey, Mr. Lewis, nice to meet you. You know, we started talking to him for a minute. So we pop out of character just for a moment, you know, to talk to somebody. We say hello. We talk to the guy, and everything else would be really cool with him. And then, you know, we go over and we go back and watch the match. Or every now and then, if we weren't wrestling and we were maybe heading home the next day, we'd sit there and we would pull a 20 out and get a friend to go get us a couple of beers. So we'd have a beer or two sitting at ringside while we're watching the show.
Ooh.
So that would be the only thing we'd ever do. Maybe get 3 or 4 beers. Each one of us have a beer while watching the show. So that would be the only time we break character. Every time else we'd be sitting there pretty much. People would say stuff to you, ask for autographs. You'd like just look at them and go, just shake it. You didn't really acknowledge them. You kind of look at them and shake your head at them and stuff like that. And just because if you start talking to them, they got you. You know, then you can't shut them up.
Now, we got to mention, and we'll get back to the flock, and we'll make sure we touch the ECW run. Something fans have been hitting us up about since me and you talked, Riggs, off air, is the American males. I know a lot of fans joke. Now, I don't know, what is your thought, first of all, that theme music? I know a lot of fans hated the theme. It's been ranked as one of the worst themes in wrestling history. I remember the promos. So you being one of the former American males, let us know first, was you a fan of the theme music? And your thoughts of those promos that y'all did back in the day.
Well, I mean, I dug them in a sense, really did, because, I mean, here was a situation when me and Marcus got put together. Look at where Marcus had come from. Marcus had been part of, with Too Cold Scorpio. He came out in matching tights, Scorpio to his music, doing the dance gimmick. Both of them would do their dance thing. Then he came out with Stars and Stripes with the Patriot, wearing red, white, and blue, to the flag, to the Stars and Stripes music. So here's Marcus being part of 2 teams that everything was about what his partner was. He had to assume the identity of his partner. So when me and Marcus got put together, it was a team. We didn't assume either one's identity. We became a team, where we had our separate identities to it, but we had, our separate looks, but we were a team, and it was the American males. It wasn't me, him, or him, me. And we had our first match against Regal and Bobby Eaton. We were doing the Blue Bloods in Orlando. It was kind of my job match as Morgan's partner. Regal and Eaton made me look like a 10-year veteran. I've been wrestling 3 years at the time, and pretty much made me look like a grizzled veteran and knew everything that was going on because of how talented those guys were. So we did that match, and immediately after that match, Jimmy Hart comes and grabs us. So hey, that was a great match. We've already made some calls. Tomorrow we're doing a photo shoot, and everything Jimmy came up with us was kind of like a little bit from the 80s of Memphis with the Fabulous Ones, with the Fantastics, with the Rock and Roll Express. And that was Jimmy's mentality. And so the first thing we did was we went and shot an $80,000 video that they never even used. It was out of Disney with their park where we rode horses with no shirts on.
Wow.
And which is kind of an old Fabulous Ones thing. They used to do stuff in Memphis where they would either ride horses or four-wheelers without shooting. Yeah. They wear bandanas, no shirts, jeans, cowboy boots, that type of thing. And so Jimmy had us go out there and do that. We rode these horses for half a day and shot all this video stuff and never even used it. And then they got Kemper Rogers, who was the producer of the music video that they had me and Marcus do. Well, actually, Kemper had us do it. That got me kind of put with Marcus and Jimmy Hart saw Kemper doing the video. And it was a black and white video for a group that, for a song that they did. It was like their B song. It ended up being on MTV Buzz Clips. And so to make a long story short, it was shot in black and white. Me and Marcus being friends, and we had a girl in it and stuff like that. And long story short, when Jimmy Hart kind of got the idea, why don't we do black and white videos for these guys? Way before NWO. So they went and shot a couple of different scenes of us around in Atlanta in black and white with your shirts off. I was, in the car bleeding shorts, the Daisy Dukes at the time, the vest, the Marcus riding motorcycle. I'm riding a Jeep. I got a boxer with me. He has another dog with him. So many little different, things that put us together as a team, but also kept us separate. But we did everything in black and white. Then went to this, I think the Fernbank Museum, this big old thing with diamond doors and stairs and all this cool stuff that, pictures and statues and stuff that we did. We shot some stuff. So we did make maybe 3 videos out of that shot. Was all in black and white. So that was really cool. And all that stuff, again, was Jimmy Hart's production stuff. He came up with songs. The first time he played it for us was in Orlando. And, you know, it had that song, wow. And it really had a good, you know, good beat to it. And then, you know, it had the song, when you see him coming, better run for cover. You know, and that's kind of cool. We're like, well, yeah. And then it went to American Males. You know, and we merged, I swear to God, both of our jaws dropped. Looked each other like, no way. And Jimmy Hart kept on going, this is great, guys. It's like a real Devo thing right here. You know, and it was like, wow, okay, cool. And it just took a little bit of, you know, getting used to. We dug it because it was ours. You know, it wasn't Marcus's song that I incorporated, or my song that Marcus incorporated. It was our song. There's something Jimmy Hart did, and he crafted a lot of great tunes and stuff. So he took pride in it. And the funky thing is, someone asked me about the other day on Twitter, and I basically said, yeah, I dug it because it was ours, and loved it or hated it. 20 years later, people still know it.
Right.
And that's the cool thing about it. I mean, that song, whether you loved it or hated it, it stands the test of time.
Yes, it did. It did. NSC Gameboy, you a fan of the American Males theme?
No. But it is entertaining, but no, I wasn't a fan of it. It to me, it was just.
To be. You need to be. It was like I said, it was the thing that it just identified us. You know, if the tune's great,
and that I agree.
Tune's great. You know,
I agree with you.
It's like Sting's song.
It did identify y'all.
You know, it's like Sting's song when he first came out to that dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. That was great for him. I can't remember where it came from or anything, but that was great for him. And then Michael Hayes wrote him that song where Amanda Called Sing, where the verses are, he does this, he does that. He's quick as a bull, and he's strong as a bull, and he's quick as a cat.
Yeah,
he looks fine,
like
he looks cool. You know, it's like, you know, and they changed it to that, and I went, wow, I'd much rather kept that dance, that beat song, you know, instead of that with no words. That was really identifiable. Nobody else had something like that. But when you change it to Amanda Called Sting, that's kind of like, or Stoner Eyes, you know, kind of like, whoa. And those songs are brutal. We really like them. But, you know, people do know them, but the thing is the American Male is still, again, whether you like it or hate it, you still know it. So.
Yeah, well, like you said, it's memorable. You know, I sung along with it as a kid. I'm not going to lie on that. It was memorable, stuck in our heads. So that was the most important thing. Of course, you know, going by fan questions, I'm getting inbox now, is do you have any rat stories to talk about being a part of the American Males and the tag teams?
The only rat
out?
stories I got were ones that really got me heat. There were plenty of them that, like me and Marcus, when we were in tours of Germany, we would be the only ones to get chicks. And, you know, we got heat for that because some of the other guys were trying to get some, and for some reason the German chicks didn't dig them. They dug the American Males. I got heat with Terry Taylor in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, over this chick that he dug. And the funny thing about it is I got a little hammered and spilled a drink all over the chick. So I leave. I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm done. Go to the room, crash. About maybe an hour later, here comes Marcus with the chick in. Find out Marcus and Lex, you know, she blew Terry Taylor off. And Marcus and Lex took her to Waffle House, got her breakfast. Marcus brought her back to the room, thought he was going to do her, ended up doing her. She called in bed with me, and it was bam. You know, she basically, and I got heat with Terry Taylor for that, and Marcus and Lex, because they were the three that whined and dined her, and I was the one who spilled the drink on her, and I got her. So most of the rat stories or chick stories, or whatever you want to call them, that they basically got me heat. Because I didn't even try for them, and I got them.
Well, that's not your fault. The fact that, you know, you're doing
fault,
you and they like you.
Dude,
they like you.
I got
and they don't like them.
Terry Taylor and J.J. Dillon one time on a plane flight back from Vegas, where first class was sold out, and we all were with Delta, and so we all had our Sky Miles cards and stuff like that, and put our name on the waiting list to see if somebody showed up we could upgrade. I'm sitting in the middle seat in the aisle row with Terry Taylor at the window, J.J. Dillon and the Owl. I'm between these two guys on a 5-hour or 4.5-hour flight, 4-hour flight from Vegas to Atlanta. I'm miserable. We're leaving like at 1 o'clock in the morning on a red eye. We get in like at 5:30 in the morning, and so I'm sitting back going, this is going to suck. And about that time, the stewardess comes up and goes, Mr. Riggs, I got you upgrading into first class. Would you like to come on up? And I'm like, yes, ma'am. I saw it pop up, and then Terry Taylor was like, hey, wait a minute. I have more miles than him. I've been flying longer than him. I got this car. Why is he getting upgraded? Well, his name's name on the list. And J.J. Dillon's like, hey, what about me? I'm this, So I got J.J. and Terry Taylor arguing with the stewardess for my upgrade. And I guess the young guy could have, or whatever, could have sat there and said, well, I'm just going to go ahead and because J.J. Dillon's been here longer than me, I'm going to go ahead and give them the upgrade. But I'm like, no, I'm going up. And I went there. I said, man, can you get me a Coors Light, please? She said, oh, yes, sir, no problem. You want me to grab your bag for you? So I grabbed their bag, and I said, see, guys, and went up there and sat in first class. And so I had more heat from that stuck with me for at least a couple of weeks. And those guys just grumbling at me. And, it was just one of those things where it's like, it wasn't my decision. I mean, the first person to ever get me into first class was Dick Slater, of all people, after the first nitro we had in Minneapolis. We were flying back. It might have been California or something. I can't remember. But it was somewhere we were flying back, and whoever was sitting next to him wasn't going to come on the flight. It was one of the boys. And I came in there, and we had worked with Dick and Buck, me and Marcus did, and Dick just grabbed me and said, sit down, you're Dick Slater. It's okay. And this was in the middle of the 90s where we didn't have all the security checks, all the stuff going on. So he just pulled me down, and he went to sleep leaning on the window. I sat in the thing, and the stewardess walks up, was Mr. Slater? I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, is that Mr. Such and Such? I said, yes, ma'am. He's asleep. Okay, would you let me? And that's the first person ever getting me into first class was Dick Slater, of all people.
Well, goddamn.
So,
bless his heart.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I loved him for it. I used to love working with him, too. He was great, but it was just one of those things where, there's just a little situation, whether it was with Figs or first class upgrade or something, I always seem to get heat without even being, and a lot of it was just being bad with his partner. Because a lot of the stuff that he always did certain things, I got heat just for being his partner. Because Marcus was Marcus. He was a heat-seeking missile. So it was good times. It was a lot of fun. But, that's my common denominator with anything was it got me heat afterwards.
Wow. That's amazing. And
it made for good times, though.
And I think the best thing about it is that, you really were put in these situations where you finally kind of came to grasp to everybody, like, it's not necessarily me doing this. You know what I mean? It's just the fact of, I've been in these great positions and you're not. I mean, it's just the way life is.
You may be that way. I mean, the second biggest heat I ever got was with Sting. We had played we had played golf. We were in Orlando. We had nitro in Tampa that night. So Lex, Sting, Marcus, and myself, we were traveling together at the time. So we went and played golf that morning. And we teed off at like 7-something and got done by noon. So we had time to take a shower, grab a quick bite to eat, then head to Tampa because Tampa was like 45 minutes away. So this is my first time really in Florida and stuff like that, traveling that way. And so I didn't know the route to go there. And I'm getting this guy in the car. I get in the back seat with Lex. Marcus gets in the passenger seat. And we're all in the car, and nobody said a word. And here comes Sting. And this is Sting, the Stinger, the man. And he has a drive from Orlando to Tampa. He doesn't say a word the whole trip. Usually we all cut up and laugh. We're talking about it, talking. He is just dead silent. We're also kind of cutting up a little bit. We get to Tampa, we get to catering, and Art Anderson comes over and rips me a new one. Going, what is your problem? You're the kid, you're the youngster, the greenhorn. Just is ripping me every curse word, every other word's an F-bomb. And he is just ripping to me going, and you make Sting drive after them, you're staying with them, you're traveling with those guys. you're the bottom of the totem pole of this area. And really I was. I was a kid. I was a greenhorn. I've only been there a few months, coming to a market for taking a chance, big deal. But still, I am the greenhorn. I'm traveling with two of the top stars and Marcus, who's been there forever. And I didn't drive. So I am just getting reamed by Arn. So after me and Marcus drew our match, course selection stinger on the end of the show, I get the car keys. I pull the car up to the very back doors of the building, pop the trunk, got the car running. The fans were all on the outside of the area, yelling and stuff like that. And I got the car backed up so close to the doors that there's an overhang that they don't even see, like this thing. They open the doors, and there's the car. I got the trunk open. I grabbed their bags in there. Arn's kind of got smartened up to what I was doing. So he's standing over there kind of winking at me going, "You're making up for it, kid. You're making up for it." And so we get into the car, and nobody's really saying a word. Kind of wondering why I did what I did. And of course, I think they know why, but, no one's saying anything. And the Nasty Boys had invited us to go play or go to a piano bar with them, where they wanted to play. You hit piano and sing and have a few drinks and stuff. We're driving around Tampa, completely lost. And we used to do this thing where we get into some crazy situation. We're going, this is zippy, this is zany, this is wild, this is wacky, this is goofy. And everyone's saying in different voice. Each one of us would say something out of it, we'll be traveling or something. And I'm sitting there driving, I'm like, this is stupid. And I'm shooting because I'm pissed because we can't find this place. And Sting lets out the biggest laugh in the world. And we all kind of looked at him, and he's like, that was great because you were shooting with it. He goes, I was so mad at you earlier for making me drive. Now you're driving, and you make me laugh. And he goes, you had the biggest heat. Now you're the world champ. So I went from having the great biggest heat with the number one guy in the company to now I'm over like Rover with them because I made them laugh because I was shooting how stupid as far as trying to find this bar the Nasty Boys wanted us to go to. Cool. So that was where my heat here came from. A lot of it was I was a little bit young to what I was doing. Maybe I knew I should have been driving, but in my mind I was like, I don't know where to go. So why should I drive? These guys know better than I do. They ought to get straight to the building, So that's when, from that point on, I was the driver. Learned my lesson through heat.
Yeah. Without heat, you get burned. So I'm glad that you got a chance to rectify that situation and put a smile on Sting's face.
It was more than a smile because when I still remember it almost vividly just when I said this, because everyone was going, we can't find this place, and like Sting was, this is wild. Mark was like, this is wacky. Sting was, this is zany. This is zippy. And I just went, this is stupid. And just the fact that I said it, I was just bitter about it. We were driving around for like half an hour trying to find this place. And I think Lex was the only one of us. No, we had cell phones, but nobody knew their numbers. So we couldn't, we were calling up on the phone, so where is this place? And we finally found it by complete luck. We just made a turn on one of those roads in Tampa. And Tampa's a unique place to drive around. It wasn't in Ybor City. It was somewhere else. It was actually down in downtown in Tampa. And so it was just one of those wild moments where just me shooting. I was frustrated. But because I was driving, it was like I'm getting lost because I can't find this place. And they have directions. And, so it was just one of those things. But, yeah, just the fact that, I made him bellow laugh because it came from his gut because it was so good.
Oh, okay. Tech, how you feel about this, man?
I think it's funny. I know NSC Gameboy, you was about to ask Riggs about Sting.
Yeah, I was going to ask the question. This past year, of course, Sting has finally came and wrestled in the WWE and everything. A lot of the performers, a lot of the talent that we've talked to, a lot of the wrestlers that we talked to have had a lot of mixed feelings about it. Some said that it was good for business. Some say that he should have never went. Some say, blah, blah, blah. I just wanted to know real quick, by you having a personal relationship with a lot of those guys back in those days in WCW, and now seeing how the career has developed for Sting to be there, I just want to know your overall opinion about what do you think for the business? You think it was a good idea for Sting to finally show up to WWE, or do you think that, he should have just went off to the sunset and just been the man that never wrestled for Vince?
I mean, Nikita Koloff never wrestled for Vince either. And so, Nikita could have went there with a bigger style. But, yeah, I mean, he had got offered a few things, but I think Crockett at the time offered Nikita bigger chances and more of a role in maybe being the world champion and stuff at that time. And so Nikita stayed where he was comfortable and never jumped into the Vince, gravy train or whatever was going on. So the thing that happened with Sting, it kind of turned him off long when everybody first jumped over there, was just how the WCW guys were being treated. Instead of coming in like, Top Guns in the sense, or, main event matches and stuff, they were all just kind of like, okay, this is what we're going to do with you, this is what we're going to do with you, you're not going to get over, going to make you really pay. In a sense, it was kind of the business part of it, because the guys that came in, the way Vince works, let me preface this real quick, the way Vince works is the more money you make him, the more money he'll make you. So if you go in there, I mean, Steve Austin, Stone Cold went in there as the ringmaster until he finally, got his chance to become Stone Cold and cut his, promo and stuff like that. So he spent a little time there really toiling, really, struggling. And like when Marcus first went in there, Marcus, got a decent little deal to come in, but then he wanted first-class flight like he had in WCW. He wanted to run a car, and you don't come in there and demand those things at first. You got to earn them, And so a lot of the guys that had been there for a while were seeing WCW guys come in, and so they're going, we've busted our ass for years here to earn these spots. We're not going to lose these to these guys. And then when Sting heard what happened with Booker and The Rock, and I don't think The Rock meant it, anything bad or like that. Booker T was jumping on The Rock. The Rock turned around and looked at him, and with everything that Booker T had built up through all his hard work in WCW, his Harlem Heat, and then by himself and everything else, the good runs he had, The Rock looked at him and looked him up and down and said, "Who are you?" And this was on Raw. I can't remember exactly when it was, but with those few words, he crushed Booker T. And with the way some of the guys lost their matches, where everyone was putting over the WWE guys, constantly just putting them over, getting stuck in really crappy angles. And, it's just, you got to earn your way with them. And everyone else thought maybe we'd go in there and they'd be, such a word, WCW. It wasn't like that. And so Stinger was like, man, I don't want to be put into a position where I've spent 20 years of my career building this up to go start all over again, in a sense. And so very few guys will really want to do that. It's the grandest stage of them all. Jericho got very blessed in going there, and within a few months, he had beat Stone Cold and The Rock on the pay-per-view and won both titles. Talking about being elevated in the right spot at the right time. One of the few guys to ever do that. I mean, it took Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit a few years of being there to finally get their big role, to get their big shots, to get their grand moment on the stage. So for Sting, he made his good decision on what he wanted to do with his career from that point on. So he took time away. He didn't need wrestling. He had become a Christian, got his life in order, saved his family, did a lot of things with his life, and started working in a different ministry in his life, different moment in his life, and he didn't need wrestling. Wrestling needed him, in a sense, to keep things going. So that's why he went to TNA. He was older, didn't want to work the WWE schedule. They didn't have the, you can work the few events here and a few events there type contract they have with guys now. So from what I know, when I was talking to Stinger, the opportunity when he finally talked to Vince and Hunter to get his WrestleMania moment, because everyone just wanted to be on that big grand stage. And that's the one thing. He had had some grand stages in Japan with New Japan and WCW and stuff like that. TNA was a little bit of a step down for him, but he was still making great money. And now I haven't worked maybe 10 days a month instead of the 20 to 30 days a month we had before. And, it was an easier schedule. So just long story short, he was happy to work the way he was working with TNA. But when there's a chance to come in and maybe work his WrestleMania match that he did, of course, everybody thought he'd get a great win. But of course, he wasn't going to win. I think we all knew that. I think all he was going to have was a great match at 55 years old against a 40-something-year-old Hunter, who can carry a guy. Hunter is one of the best workers in the business. I don't care what anyone says about him. Great mind, great passion for the sport, great reverence for the history of the sport. And I don't care what anybody says about him. I totally respect the guy. And yeah, it was kind of goofy to get beat by a sledgehammer and then turn around and shake the guy's hand after the show. But, it was the way it went. But, everybody just wanted to see Sting at that moment, and I didn't know how and then he went home right after that. You didn't hear anything about him from that point on, so they kind of misused him. Everybody thought it was something that would be for him, but that was the thing. They had a plan for him to do that, and then we're going to maybe do something with him later. So that's the only thing about going in there at the age he did. He knew he was going to go in there to do one thing, get a moment, get a little bit of a rub for the stuff that was going on, get his character, revisited with the fans today. And of course, none of the fans today even forgot about him. They all loved him. They just hated to see the way he can be treated. But even he knew that was what they were going to have for him to do. So it wasn't like his ego was getting bruised or that he was going to be, upset about the way we were going to use him. He went in there with full knowledge of what was going to go on. So he's completely at peace with it because none of it hurts his legacy. His legacy is, this is just a rose on the lapel of his legacy is dressed to the nines, basically. And his WWE run right here is just a rose on the lapel of his tuxedo, basically. It's just an icing on the cake. Because then he'll get his Hall of Fame induction, that the fans will dig. And they'll remember most of his legacy before WWE. That's where he gave his sweat and blood for. So that's what the fans remember.
And you make very great points, Riggs. You do about Sting. I know time is a little of the essence. We're gonna bring in our lead correspondent Shin. He wanted to ask you a question, Riggs, if that's fine.
Yeah. Actually, Riggs, I had wrote about that with Sting and WrestleMania and how people was booking them. I can have Tech send you the link later on after the show. But my question is an ECW question, and I wanted to ask you, what was it like being the first person to take the van Terminator?
Well, it hurt, basically. To make a long story short, the first time I really took it was in Kansas City on a Friday night. We were wrestling each other, and we had a set up to try it out to see how it would work because we knew we wanted to do it. And I think he had done it once before with Roadkill, but not quite the same setup with it that we had put together for doing it. So we tried it there, and my first thought was he'd hit it flat and it would hit my face flat, so I kind of put my hands up, just my hands to block it. And when he hit the chair, left their springboard into the drop kick, hit the chair, and instead of coming flat into my face, he hit it and it came edge down and shattered my nose. I remember seeing a bright flash, everything went black, and then I opened my eyes and saw them with stars. I swear to God. And then I started crawling on the ring, and blood was just pouring out my nose like a faucet. And Steve Corino and Jack Victory, because there was going to be no finish in the match, they came in and they were supposed to, we were supposed to get into a big, beat down on Rob, and Rob was going to end up doing a big flip on us. I'm crawling out of the ring. I'm just crawling. I don't care anymore. I'm bleeding. My face is smashed. And I'm just crawling to the back. And basically, I had about 6 weeks before the pay-per-view. We had TV the next day. So I went into TV. My face was all swollen. And basically, we did a deal with TV where me and Corino jumped Jerry Lynn and Tommy Dreamer to set up a deal we were going to be doing after the pay-per-view. And basically just went in with my nose taped up, my face all swollen, a little black and blue already starting to set in. And then it wasn't going to air until after the pay-per-view anyway. So I think the way it fell, we did like 3 TVs that night for the TNN deal, TNN National Network at the time, but one Spike yet. But the long story short, when the pay-per-view came around. And the first time I saw it on air and pay-per-view and everything else, I basically had my forearm covering my face. I just tucked my nose in the crook of my elbow to my bicep, my forearm, and said, "He ain't breaking my face again." And Rob had actually broken my nose already once in '93, and maybe '94. I was wrestling. I was wearing a mask. I wrestled myself on one of the shows, like the second match. Then I came back in the main event against Rob, doing this masked Japanese guy. We call him the Punisher. There's probably like 5 or 6 guys that worked the gimmick, but it was my turn to work the gimmick, and basically worked it against Rob, and he basically cut me with a stiff kick right in the face and just squished my nose in this mask. I mean, there's blood on the mask and everything else. But so he's broken my nose twice, and once with a stiff kick and once with Red Terminator. But when we did it at the pay-per-view, I predicted my face. He's not breaking my nose again. If he'll break my arm, he'll break my arm, but he hit it perfectly. And so I was like, oh, thank God, you know. But the first time I took it, hurt.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad that you find out for that. I know you've been a part of a lot of history in wrestling. We can ask you, Riggs, we can have you come back on very soon for part 2 so we can discuss more about your ECW career and WCW.
Sure. We can work that out sometime in the future.
Sure. Well, before we let you go, we'll let you do something we call Plug Party. So go ahead and plug away anything that you need the plug for, how to contact you, any recent appearances that you're doing, or any businesses that you're running or you're into now. I'm plugging at the moment. Otherwise, if you want to follow me on Twitter at Real Scotty Riggs. You can follow me on my Instagram, Real Scotty Riggs also, or on Score, which is SQOR, which is it's a athlete's version of Instagram, where there's mainly MMA guys and a few football players and stuff on it. And basically, the athletes that are on there get a little paycheck for being on the sports thing. It's something that Brett Favre started. And I'm on there. I'm verified on there. And me and Bobby Lashley, the only pro wrestlers on there right now. But I'm Scotty Riggs on that. So just those 3 things. And if you want to get some T-shirts, go to ProWrestlingTees.com. Scotty Riggs to go to my store. And those are pretty much the only things I want to plug for you right now. Well, Riggs, it's been an honor. It's been a privilege to have you on, and I'll definitely be contacting you after the show, and we'll set up the next day for part 2.
Very good, my man. Tell Sean I said hello. I don't know him, but I know of him. Hernandez. We've never met, but I've watched him, and I'm a big fan of his work. So he's one of the few big guys that knows when to fly and how to fly and make it look good, and then he does his power moves too. So he's got a good mix in his style. So I've always been a fan of that work. So just tell myself hello.
Once Hernandez come on, we definitely give you the shout out and let him know.
Thank you, buddy. Y'all have a
good
one.
It's been a pleasure.
All right,
thank you.
Man. Take care.